So we'll get started. There we go. So the agenda for today, we're going to talk about the routes to GMC registration and the Royal College of Pathologists sponsorship schemes. And then we're going to talk about the benefits of each of the schemes, the differences between them, the medical training initiative, the MTI scheme, and the sponsorship scheme. Then we'll be talking about the enrollment process for the MTI and sponsorship schemes. And if you've got any questions or answers, we can talk about them later. If you have any, I'm seeing a Q&A there, I'm hoping. Yes, we will share the link for the September one. We'll do that later. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box. And then when we get to that point later, we will get through them. I will just answer that now. So yeah, just so you know, we will share the link for the September one towards the end of the presentation. So the different types of GMC registration. So there's full registration, which doctors need full registration for medical practice in the NHS, and then there's specialist registration, and this is what someone would need to take up a consultant post in the NHS, and doctors must be included in the specialist register. So today we will just be talking about full registration. So doctors seeking specialist registration should either contact the college's training team, that's training@rcpath.org, or contact the GMC directly for more guidance. So the different routes to GMC registration, that full registration, are passing the PLAB tests, an acceptable postgraduate qualification, a relevant European qualification, and sponsorship by an approved GMC sponsor. So for the PLAB test, there's two tests. The PLAB 1 is a written exam that's made up of 180 multiple choice questions, and the PLAB 2 is an objective structured clinical exam. And the PLAB test must be passed if failed to apply for sponsorship. So if a doctor has attempted PLAB and failed and then is trying to apply for sponsorship, they must first go back and pass PLAB before they can apply for sponsorship. And then the next route or possible route is the acceptable postgraduate qualification, and a postgraduate qualification from either a UK or overseas organisation that is listed on the GMC website. So it breaks down all of the UK organisations and overseas organisations that the GMC recognises for postgraduate qualifications. And the RCPath is an acceptable postgraduate qualification. So becoming a fellow, passing both of the college examinations is a possible route. And then the relevant European qualification. And this is just simply a qualification is considered relevant if it's on the GMC's relevant European qualification list. For more information about these routes, please contact the GMC at img@gmc/uk.org or go on their website directly, because those are the routes that they are involved in. The college does not coordinate those routes. And then the sponsorship route. So the college sponsorship schemes, the college has always had a policy of assisting international medical graduates who wish to obtain further pathology training in the UK. And our sponsorship schemes offer assistance to those who are advanced in their training and want to pursue a career in pathology by supporting doctors from outside the UK to come to the UK for GMC registration. And it can be a bit confusing because we have sponsorship schemes, and one of them is called sponsorship and the other one is called a medical training initiative. So this pyramid is just used to kind of help identify and kind of explain the different schemes. So the college has sponsorship schemes which are made up of one MTI scheme and one sponsorship scheme, and the aim of these is to offer assistance to those wishing to pursue a career in pathology. So the benefits of these schemes, both of these schemes benefit UK trusts and international medical graduates because it offers hospitals and trusts the opportunity to get suitable posts appropriately filled by qualified international medical graduates, and it offers those doctors good quality training opportunities. And specifically for the MTI scheme, it prioritizes opportunities for doctors from developing countries to obtain good quality training in the UK before returning to the home country. And that in turn enhances the healthcare system in their home country because they're taking the training they received from the UK back to their home country to help improve their healthcare system there. So this is just a slide that talks about the differences between the MTI and the sponsorship scheme. And so the difference is mainly among three different areas: the duration, salary, and visa. So for the duration, the MTI scheme can be undertaken in the NHS for a maximum of 24 months. So it can be done shorter, it can be done for 12 months if the doctor prefers, or if the UK Trust only wants to have that position for 12 months. But the maximum it can be is 24 months. And for the sponsorship scheme, it can potentially be permanent, depending on the visa, because the visa is issued by the UK Trust, or the certificate of sponsorship for the visa is issued by the UK Trust. And then there are differences between salaries. So for the MTI scheme, funding is provided in three different ways. It is either fully funded by the doctor's home country employer, it is either fully funded by the UK Trust, or it's a combination of the home country and UK Trust. But the UK Trust funding must meet the UK minimum wage. And for the sponsorship scheme, the positions are salaried with the UK Trust and should pay at the relevant scale for the role. If it's a ST3 and you kind of like level postage, the pay should be appropriate to that level. And then for visas, so for the MTI scheme, we coordinate with an organization called the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges, and they are responsible for issuing a Tier 5 certificate of sponsorship, which is used for the doctor to apply for their visa. And the international medical graduate, the college, and the UK Trust will need to complete relevant information on the Academy's form with certain documentation included. The Academy is actually technically the sponsor for kind of the Home Office and UK visa and immigration purposes, but because the Academy does it for all Royal Colleges, they then delegate it to the specialty college to kind of coordinate with the UK Trust and the doctor. And for the sponsorship route, the UK Trust will issue the certificate of sponsorship, and this is where the doctor will apply for a healthcare worker visa. Again, with these visas, it's quite important that they have any questions they should ask it before coming to the country, because we have had it where people have come to the UK on a different visa, maybe like a dependent visa, and then they try and join these schemes, and they're actually not able to because you have to live outside the UK, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. But it is important, if they have any visa queries or if you're interviewing someone at that process, it's got to make sure you answer those questions then with them, or please feel free to get them to contact the college and we can discuss that with them, because they could be approved for a post and come to the UK on a different visa and they actually won't be able to join the schemes. But like I said, I'll go into that in a little bit later. So criteria for MTI sponsorship scheme. So what are the posts that can be sponsored? So they can either be specialty training programs, fixed term specialty training appointments, locum appointments for training, or honorary supernumerary posts. And all of these posts must be in an approved practice setting, and it states on the GMC website that all designated bodies are recognised as approved practice settings, and there's a list of designated bodies that can be found on the GMC website. And just so you know, under no circumstances can the posts be assigned for locum consultant or consultant posts, because these schemes are strictly for training posts, not consultants. And so this outlines the evidence that's required for the GMC registration. So the doctor's primary medical qualification must be verified by the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. Then they must have a valid certificate of good standing, certificate of internship completion, evidence of English language, 3 satisfactory references, evidence of active full-time medical practice, and proof of a training post. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about each of those. So the doctor's primary medical qualification must be verified by the ECFMG using their online system, the electronic portfolio of international credentials. And this is where they get their primary medical qualification verified. And all applicants will need to be qualified at a medical school outside of the UK or the European Economic Area or Switzerland. And they mustn't hold a provisional registration license to practice. So evidence of certificate of good standing. So the GMC needs a certificate of good standing from all of the countries that the doctor has been registered or licensed with, even if they haven't practiced there. And the certificate of good standing is only valid for 3 months. So they need to be careful about when they request it, because once it's issued, it is only valid then for 3 months. If it expires and 3 months goes and they still haven't kind of successfully joined the scheme or started their kind of apply for GMC registration, they will need to apply again for a certificate of good standing. And the GMC website has details where you can find, or they can find, the medical regulatory authorities for each country using the GMC Certificate of Good Standing contact database. So it lists out all of the medical councils that doctors in certain countries will need to contact. And the certificate of internship completion, yeah, quite simple. The doctor will need to submit a certificate of internship completion to the college with their application. Then they'll need to have proof of English language. So the English language test can be done by either 2 different providers, the IELTS, which is the International English Language Testing System, and the Occupational English Test. So for the IELTS, they must take the academic version of the test, and they must achieve at least 7 in all 4 areas. So listening, reading, speaking, and writing, and an overall score of 7.5. And the certificate is only valid for 2 years, and it must be valid at the point of GMC registration. For the OET test, they must take the medicine version of the test, and they must achieve at least a B grade in each testing area. And again, both of these certificates are only valid for 2 years, and the scores must be obtained in the same test. So you can't achieve some of the grades in one test and the rest in another. It must all be in one test. So employment, another criteria. So again, this is where I talked about location. International medical graduates must live outside of the UK at the time of application. This is really important because it is for doctors living overseas to come to the UK to kind of undertake training. So that's the thing. If people come to the UK under a different visa, they are not allowed to join the schemes. They will have to go back to their home country and apply for that route. And that's quite a strong criteria. And so for their experience, they must have been engaged in medical practice for 3 out of the last 5 years and 12 months prior to GMC registration submission. And also the most recent 2 years must have been in pathology. And the 12-month rule applies when the sponsorship registration certificate is submitted to the GMC. So the applicant, that might sound a little bit confusing, but the applicant submits all their documentation to us. We check all of it. So they've submitted their documentation. We're reviewing all of it. And then when we reach out to the GMC and send them a sponsorship registration certificate, from that day, that doctor must have been in constant medical practice for the most recent 12 months. So all the previous 12 months. And then 3 out of the last 5 years. And it's just important to note that clinical attachments or observerships are not counted as medical practice. And then references. So in the application form, they'll need to provide 3 references to the college. One of them must be a current supervisor, again, to cover that most recent 12 months. And then the other 2 must be for previous supervisors from their previous organizations. And the referees are not allowed to be personally related to them, like friends or family. Again, for employment, so the college is not able to financially sponsor international medical graduates, and we do not hold a list of current vacancies within the NHS about what any of the jobs that are vacant. So we always point doctors in the direction of the NHS, BMJ, and Oriel job sites. That's where we kind of tell them to go because we don't source them on our website. We think it's much better just to go straight to the organization or the website that's advertising instead of trying to duplicate it on our website. We point them in the direction of those websites. Job description. So when they apply, they'll need to send us proof of a job description with an offer letter. And it's important, and this is important for the trust to know, the UK trust, is that the post must include the word trainee or equivalent in the title, because I know that a lot of organizations do use slightly synonymous words, but it is quite important that it has at least the trainee equivalent in it. So specialty trainee doctor, specialty registrar, international training fellow, that's absolutely fine. But we're not allowed for it to say specialty doctor because it doesn't need to, again, mention trainee because these schemes are only for training posts. So it's quite important for us to kind of have that included in the title of the post. And then in the job description, it must be clear within it that the international medical graduate will receive appropriate and constant supervision within their post. And it's quite important that that is explicitly mentioned within the job description, because it's implied, but again, we have to review the content within the job description. So if it doesn't say it, we don't know that it's there. So that's why we're quite important and specific that it does include that. So now I'll hand over to Anna to talk a little bit more about the enrollment process for both of the college schemes. Anna?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. I will go through the enrollment process for both schemes, for the MTI scheme and the sponsorship scheme. For the MTI scheme, it consists of 4 stages in the process of recruitment and until the trainee comes to the UK for starting work. And for the sponsorship scheme, there are 2 routes. The first route is where the trainee find the job already and ask for GMC registration, for full GMC. This is called the route 1, where the letter from the Royal College of Pathology will help him to have full GMC registration. And the second route is what's called pending status. Next slide. So this slide will go through the MTI scheme and the sponsorship scheme for the first route, which is full GMC registration route. So in stage 1, the UK Trust gets deanery approval for the training post. And then they advertise the post and start the recruitment process and appoints a successful trainee. So the first stage is mainly done by the UK Trust. When they have a vacancy or they have a post where they want to employ someone under either MTI scheme or will be the sponsorship scheme. Stage 2 is the trainee will submit primary medical qualification for EPIC verification, which means that he has to verify his certificates before applying for the scheme. Then he will submit a completed application form to the Royal College of Pathology, including all the supporting documents which Giles was talking about, and including the job offer and the job description as well. All of this has to be sent to the international pathology, where the email mentions at international at rcpath.org. Then the Royal College of Pathology will notify the trainee that this application has been received and there will be administration fees of £50 is added to the trainee's RCPath account. Next slide. In stage 3, the trainee sets up RCPath account and makes the £50 payment to the college. RCPath will request references to support the applicant's MTI application. Then, once we receive the applicant's reference, the international team will process the references and application and supporting evidence. The Royal College of Pathology will notify the trainee if their application is successful, and then the college instructs the applicant to start their GMC registration and ask them for the MTI fees. Trainee will pay the fees and start their online GMC registration, where the trainee should liaise directly with the hospital to complete the form for the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges, which will be the sponsor. Once the trainee has submitted their application to the GMC, the trainee receives the GMC reference number, which he should send to the college. Then the college will submit the sponsorship registration certificate, which is called SRC, directly to the GMC. GMC will assess the application, and if approved, the doctor is invited to attend an ID check at the GMC offices, and this might take as long as 6 weeks. Then the trainees send the GMC confirmation email to the RCPath. At this stage, this finished for the sponsorship scheme. So now the trainee is registered with the GMC, and he already has a sponsorship from the Royal College of Pathology, and then he could contact the trust in order to give him the certificate of sponsorship in order to apply for the visa. For the MTI scheme, it comes to the stage 4, where the trainee and Royal College of Pathology plus the trust will complete the online application form for the Academy of Medical of Royal Colleges. The hospital must arrange for it to be signed by the correct deanery. So for each trainee, the deanery responsible for the specialty. For example, for microbiology, there will be someone from the deanery who is responsible for signing these papers. So the form has to be signed by the correct person in the deanery. Once this is complete, the RCPath reviews the application and approves it. The Royal College of Pathology applies for the Tier 5 certificate of sponsorship at the Academy of Medical of Royal Colleges. So the Royal College of Pathology is the site where they apply for the Tier 5 visa from the Academy of Royal Colleges. Then the Academy of Medical of Royal Colleges process their application, and if approved, they will issue the certificate of sponsorship, which is required for the visa to the Royal College of Pathology. The Royal College of Pathology receives the certificate of sponsorship for the visa and forward this to the trainee and the trust. Trainee applies for the visa and notifies the college once this has been approved. Lastly, the trainee attends ID check with the GMC before initiating training. So at this stage, the trainee under MTI scheme will apply to the visa and will come to the UK and start the job. The Academy of Medical Royal Colleges has specific papers to be signed and has to be done online, which is starter form, and this should be submitted within 10 days of the trainee came to the UK and start the job. So once the trainee arrived to the UK and start the job, they have the trust responsibility is to do this starter form, and it should be done online, and it has to have 2 copies. One is the form, signed copy of the form of the right to work in the UK, and the second form is the copy of the BRP, which is the resident permit papers. So these 2 things has to be submitted online to the Academy of Medical of Royal Colleges. And if the trainee involved one of the Royal Colleges, and in our case it will be Royal College of Pathology, has to be mentioned in the form that it is sponsored by the Royal College of Pathologists. Second form is the exception report, which is when the trainee failed to come to the UK and start the job according to the dates which mentioned in the certificate of sponsorship. So if there is any delay, they have to submit an exception report to the Academy of Royal Colleges mentioning that the trainee didn't arrive because of certain circumstances. At the end of the placement, again, there is end of placement report, which has to be submitted online once the trainee finished the period we supposed to stay in the UK. Lastly is the transfer form, which is if the trainee transferred from one post to the other, even within the trust or in a different trust, this transfer form has to be done by the trust and sent to the Academy of Medical of Royal Colleges. And actually, the Academy of Medical of Royal Colleges now starts to find the trust who didn't follow these steps by not giving them a sponsorship in the future. So if any of the trusts failed to fulfill these criteria or these forms and not sent in the right time to the Academy of Royal Colleges, they find the trust by not giving them any sponsorship in the future. The second route is the pending status sponsorship, which is the route for the trainee who doesn't secure a post in the UK as yet. So he contacted the Royal College of Pathology asking for sponsorship. However, he doesn't have the job offer as yet. So again, the trainee will need to submit their primary medical qualification to EPIC for verification. Trainee will need to submit an application including all supporting documents, which we mentioned before, to the college via the website to the international@rcpath.org. Royal College of Pathology will acknowledge receipt of the application and add administration fee of £50 to trainees' RCPath account. The trainee will create the RCPath account once they have received email link and pay £50 as an administration fees. RCPath requests references to support applicants' application. RCPath receives the applicant's references, international team process the references, application, and supporting evidence. Then the RCPath will issue a pending status sponsorship letter, and this will be sent to trainee, and this letter is valid only for 1 year. Trainee will seek training and employment, and the trust will provide an offer letter and a job description to the trainee, which will then be sent to the RCPath for approval. Trainee to submit their job description and offer letter to the RCPath. Please note the trainee has to be in employment until this has been approved, because as Giles mentioned before, some of the trainees might come to the UK under a different visa, and they ask for a sponsorship. If they are not in a job until until they provide the evidence that they are on job until the stage where they will provide with the sponsorship scheme, they are not going to be giving the letter. So they cannot be sponsored unless they are still working. Job description and job offer letter will be evaluated, and the trust may be asked to make amendment to the job descriptions. Other supporting documentations and experience must be valid. The Royal College of Pathology will approve the post and sponsorship application. Trainees will be advised to start their GMC registration and pay sponsorship scheme fees. Trainee complete their GMC registration and send their GMC number to RCPath to issue a sponsorship registration certificate. Sponsorship registration certificate issued by the RCPath to GMC. GMC assesses the application, and if approved, the doctor is invited to attend an ID check at the GMC offices, and this again will take up to 6 weeks. Trainee will receive their registration, and then we will need to notify both RCPath and their trust. Once he has the GMC registration, then the trust is to issue the certificate of sponsorship for visa to trainee. Trainee to apply for visa and make arrangement to come to UK to undertake training. And then trainee will be required to attend an identity check at one of the GMC offices before commencing employment to the UK. So there are 3 things that trainee has to put in mind. First, he should have valid English language test at this time. He should have a valid certificate of good standing, and also be in job until the time of receiving this certificate of sponsorship letter. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate that. And here are just some useful links. So this is just the GMC website where it talks about registration, licensing, and its link is join the register before you apply. And then this is the Academy website underneath there for the MTI scheme about the forms that's involved. So you're more than welcome. I'll leave this up just for a second if you want to take a photo of these links. So yeah, for the GMC registration and then for the Academy forms, and it gives you a little bit more information about the MTI scheme and which form to fill out at which stage.